In the last chapter, we focused on distributions, how to describe them, how to measure them. In this one, we're going to take a specific value within that distribution and talk about its location. One of these measures of locations is called the percentile. And the wording on this definition is a little odd, so let me walk you through it. The pth. So what we're going to be doing is replacing that p with an actual number that's a variable. So the pth percentile of a distribution is the value with p, there's that same number again, percent of observations less than it. So that's the key word there. How many observations are less than that? So that's a weird definition. I think it's easier to understand it with an actual example, like a student's percentile on a test. So for example, on a test, no, the percent correct would be how many correct divided by how many questions or points were possible. That's percent correct. The student's percentile would be how many students scored less than they did divided by how many total students tested. So let's look at another example just to kind of drive this home. We've got an example here of Major League Baseball. We've got a stem plot, shows the number of wins for each of the 30 Major League Baseball teams in 2009. We want to calculate and interpret the percentiles for the Colorado Rockies, who had 92 wins, the New York Yankees, who had 103 wins, and Cleveland Indians, who had 65 wins. So let's take a look at our stem plot here. When I find the 92 for the Rockies, it's right here. And I'm going to count. Now, I could count how many are below it, but since it says in our directions that there were 30 Major League Baseball teams, it would be easier just to count above and subtract. It turns out, including the Rockies, we want to include the Rockies, there are 6 numbers. That means there's 24 teams that had scores less than the Rockies. We're going to divide that by 30, and that gives us the 80th percentile. So 80% of the teams scored less than the Rockies. All right, Yankees. So you would think, all right, that it would be 100% of the teams, that Yankees would be at the 100th percentile. But remember, this is actually the number of teams that scored less than them. And that means there were 29 teams that scored less than them, and we're going to divide by 30. That gives you 0.96667 if we rounded. You always want to round down because we're looking for less than. So that means the Yankees were in the 96th percentile. The Indians. Okay, yes, I know. They're probably going through a name change right now. But in 2009, they were still called the Indians. So for the purpose of this mathematical calculation, we will continue to call them the Indians. Now, this one is a unique problem because they had 65 wins. And when I go to my table, my stem plot, I've got 2 65s, but it doesn't matter which 65 they were because it's the ones less than 65. So only 3 teams scored less than 65. So that's going to equal the 10th percentile. In this next example, we're going to look at something new called a cumulative relative frequency graph. It's a big of a mouthful, but 2 terms we're already familiar with. Remember, relative means proportional. So we're not looking at the raw numbers. We're looking at a proportion of how frequently an event occurred. Cumulative, that's the new word. It just means we're going to add it up as we go. So it's almost like we're looking at things less than. So if I take a look here, if I look at 60, what this is asking is what frequency, what percents of households have a median income of 60 or less. So it's kind of that percentile idea. And it looks like it's this dot here. So it looks like almost 90%. One thing you'll always notice on a cumulative frequency is it will always go up to 100%. But in this case, they just wrote that as a decimal. So it always starts at 0 and it always ends at 100%. So I'll let you read through the scenario here, but let's go ahead and take a look at this example. We've got the graph showing median household income for all 50 states. It says that California has a median income of about $57,000. So I'm just going to estimate that it's somewhere here between 55 and 60. I would go straight up, okay? And it looks like it's about 80%. I mean, this is not a precision thing. So I'm even going to write that. I used the word about to indicate that it was an estimate. So let me show you that one more time. I just estimated that 57,000 was right here in between. I went straight up and straight across to about 0.8 or 80th percentile. In the next question, it asks what is the 25th percentile? So we would read this backwards. So since this is 0.2, this would be 0.3, this would be 0.4. I'm going to go somewhere here between these two marks, and it looks like it's pretty close to that dot. So I'm going to say about $45,000. And I'm curious if any of you have caught on, what would be another name for the 25th percentile? We just learned in the last chapter about that 5-number summary. So the 25th percentile would be where our lower quartile would be. And the final question is about where is the graph the steepest? And I'd go between here and here, maybe even just focusing on one area. But remember, what that means is that's a concentration of most of our values. So the way I stated this is the graph is steepest between 45,000 and 55,000. So we can see between here and here. It says, but what that means is more states have median incomes about 50%. So where am I getting that 50% from? So if this point here is representing my lower quartile, my 25th percent, then this point looks like it's at about 75th percentile. So 25th to 75th, that would give me that 50%. So as this gets steeper, it means there's a higher concentration of our frequency in that range. I'm going to speed things up here a little bit. What is a standardized score? So when we want to know how many standard deviation an observation is above or below the mean, this is known as standardizing. So we've talked about percentiles, which divides our area up into basically 100 units of percentages. But standard deviation is a little bit more specific of a position around our mean. So standardizing uses the unit of our standard deviation rather than just 100 sections or 4 sections with quartiles. And it gives us a lot more information about our distribution. The formula for this, and so don't panic yet, it's a formula, and it's actually very easy formula to use. It's the z-score. It's equal to your observation minus your mean divided by your standard deviation. So the observation in context is z standard deviations above, below the mean of the mean, okay, the actual number, and you want to write it in context. Don't get too caught up on this, but because it'll make more sense once we do an example. So go ahead and take a moment to copy all of that down. Does the z-score have units? This is easy. No, it does not. it is a distance. So it really doesn't have any units itself. It's just a relationship from the mean. And really simply, if you end up with a positive z-score, it's an observation above the mean. A negative z-score is an observation below the mean. So we'll do those ditto marks so we don't have to write so much. Let's dive into an actual problem, and it'll help make sense of all of this. So we've got the Centers of Disease. Oh, we've heard about them a lot lately. The CDC. We've got 3-year-old females. They have a mean height of 94.5 centimeters, standard deviation of 4 centimeters. 12-year-old males, we've got that info. So highlighted the key information, and what we're going to look at is we've got a brother and sister. Macy, who's 100 centimeters tall, so she's definitely taller than the mean, as is her brother Brody. They're both taller than average for their age. Now, Brody, of course, is taller than Macy, but relatively within the norms of the data, where do they sit? Let's start with Macy's z-score so that we can compare these two. Start with her actual height, which was 100 centimeters. Subtract the mean height of all 3-year-olds and divide that by the given standard deviation. So Macy's height is 1.375 standard deviations above the mean. So let's put that into context like we talked about earlier. Macy's height is 1.375 standard deviations. Look, no unit here, above the mean height for 3-year-old females of 94.5 centimeters. These are the things you do need to include. So everything has context. It's Macy's height. It's compared to other 3-year-old females, and it has the original mean with the unit. I want you to take a moment to calculate Brody's z-score. So Brody's z-score is going to be his height, 158, subtract the average height, and divide by the standard deviation. So hopefully you found that Brody's z-score was 1.125, and then you would make this conclusion: his height, 1.125 standard deviations above the mean height for 12-year-old males of 149. Now don't forget, it says relative to other kids of the same ages, who's taller? Well, that's going to be Macy. So let's look at how we would write that conclusion. So Macy is relatively taller than Brody when compared to other children their age and gender.